Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Special shout out to Shlomi Berger for being here for Breakfast in the Class with great Mesirut Nefesh. Long-time listener, first-time attender. Hazaku Baruch. Breakfast in the Class dedicated in loving memory of Marcel Abush, Lilu Nishmat Marcel Bat Zion, Alea Shalom, the Gadi, Shai, and Dahan families. Dedicated for the Refuah Shlema of Hannah Bela, Bat Rivka Ayelet, and Kol Israel, sponsored by Matthew Naubauer. As well, dedicated in loving memory of Nishmat Shlomo Abrahamov Ben Sipor v'Yaakov. Ishto Leah Banav Kalotav David Bracha Gad ve'Ilana Ronen ve'Dikla Emmanuel Vered Abrahamov, sponsored by Ruti and Rafi Fuzailov. As well, in loving memory of Ms. Lily Safar Lilu Nishmat Leah Bat Chana, whose philanthropy has reached so many throughout the world. The entire month of Cold Brew is dedicated in honor of Rochelle Syed, donated by her children. We are the beneficiaries of your children here and out in the synagogue. So thank you so much for producing such wonderful children, Mrs. Syed and your husband, Alav Shalom. Okay, my friends, let us begin. The Pasuk tells us that when Noach was going into the Teva, the Pasuk says, Kach, I want you to take for yourself. Kach lecha, take for yourself. Mikol ma'achal asher ye'achel, from all the food that shall be eaten by all the animals, the asafta elecha, and you shall gather all of those things unto you. Gather all those fruits and vegetables and whatever else all the animals eat. I don't know, I'm not a zoologist. All those foods, gather them and bring them to the teva. Listen to this kliyakar, my friends. Kach lecha mikol ma'achal, lecha mashma mishel lecha. Where do we find this idea? Ulekachtem lachem bayom harishon. It says about lulav and etrog. What do we learn from that? Ulekachtem lachem. You shall take for yourselves on the first day of Sukkot a lulav and etrog. We learn that's the whole perek in Masechet Sukkah, lulav hagazul, that the lulav has to belong to you. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be that you borrow your friends unless he gives it to you as a matana, as a present. So lachem means it belongs to you. Okay? You understand that? Says the kliyakar, if God said, Kach lecha mikol ma'achal, it means that God was commanding Noach to take from food that belonged to him. Mishelcha, lo mishel acherim, not from anybody else. Kiderech mishel lachem, ane'emar bedaled minim. Same way, the word of lachem in the four species means has to belong to you. Listen to this kliyakar. Kedei shelo yachshov Noach, in order that Noach should not think to himself, Hare hayom o machar yamutu kulam. Tomorrow, everybody's dead. The floods are coming, everyone's dying. If everyone's dead tomorrow, this fruit, this vegetable, this, I don't know, dead mouse stash that the guy has in Petco, that I want to serve the snakes on my teba, right? Tomorrow they belong to nobody. They're all gone. The whole world's going to be wiped out. In order that he shouldn't think that he was allowed to take from that, because everyone's dead tomorrow, the Pasuk said, Umamunam kala, their money's going to be destroyed. I'm allowed to take it today. In order he shouldn't think that, God said to Noach, Kach lecha, take for yourself, Mishelcha, it has to belong to you. You hear that? Everyone hears that? My friends, there's an unbelievable lesson, I think, that's hidden under the hood over here. And that lesson is this idea, this concept of how we look at the generation of the flood and how we look at Noach and his family being saved from that specific thing. You know, there was an unbelievable story with a judge from New York City who went to Israel. And he was there at the time when they were releasing prisoners from prison. And he went to see the process of how they did it in Israel. I mean, today, a judge in New York doesn't need to travel to Israel to see them releasing prisoners. Okay, but either way, at the time, he travels to Israel. And he's present and he's watching what's going on. Anyway, one guy gets up, one of the prisoners gets up, and he turns, and the judge turns to this prisoner, the Israeli judge, and he says, tell me, are you going to steal ever again? We're releasing you now. You know, your time is up. Your sentence is finished. We're letting you back into society. Are you going to steal from now and from now on out? And the guy says, no, Your Honor, I'm not going to steal. He goes, well, actually, wait a second. He goes, I'm going to steal one more time, but then that's it. The judge says, you're going to steal one more time? What do you mean? We told you, you're letting you out. You gotta go straight. You can't steal one more time. There's no such thing. The guy says, listen, he goes, you asked me, I'm telling you the truth. He goes, I'm going to get out one more time. The judge says, you're going to get out one more time. What are you going to steal with this one more time? He says, I'm going to steal a watch for Rabbi Aryeh Levine. Rabbi Aryeh Levine was a very famous tzaddik. He was called the tzaddik of Yerushalayim. He took care of all the prisoners, of all the sick people. He would travel. He took care of all the people that no one wanted anything to do with. He was the rabbi of the thieves. He was the rabbi of the, of the people, of the lepers. He would go to the hospital that everyone was scared to go into because of diseases that were contagious. He would sit with the people. He would cry with them. Unbelievable tzaddik. By the way, sorry? Astanna. But he went into the hospital. And he would sit with them. And a miracle that even though he was with all these people with all sorts of contagious diseases, he never caught one disease, not even one time. How God protects the people who do the right thing for the right reasons without looking for arrogance or self-aggrandizement, okay? Anyway, this rabbi, it was the rabbi of the prisoners. He gave them hope. He turned them around. He brought them back to teshuvah. The guy asked, why in the world you want to steal one thing? You steal a watch from the rabbi? He says, listen, Rabbi Aryeh Levine is my rabbi. I notice he doesn't have a watch. So he says, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to try everything I can to buy the rabbi a nice watch. He says, but if I can't buy him a watch, I'm going to steal it. This rabbi deserves a watch. I was thinking to myself, you know why the rabbi don't have a watch? Because he's the rabbi of the thieves. Every time that goes into prison, someone else shows his watch. All right? Either way, point is, okay? You don't have a watch, I'm going to steal him a watch. The judge from New York was so moved that clearly his relationship with this rabbi was very close, was very connected. And not only that, he managed to turn the guy to teshuvah, to make him a sincere person, but it's a little bit weird what's going on here. The guy, you did him teshuvah, you made him do teshuvah, so he's so genuine, so, connected. But at the same time, he tells you he's going to steal another watch. What did you do him teshuvah or not? Anyway, the judge makes an appointment to meet with Rabbi Aryeh Levine. He's got to figure this out. He's got to understand. He goes to the rabbi. He says, you got to tell me, what's going on here? What's your trick? How do you turn these ganavim into tzaddikim? And when you turn them into tzaddikim, how can you give them like one last Hail Mary? What's the deal with did you allow them to steal one more time? The rabbi says, I'll tell you, I did no such thing. He says, I look at people like this, and they're on their last leg. They've corrupted their ways. They've done terrible things. They're in a terrible dark place. I know if I ask them to do everything, they're not going to do anything. So I ask them to do one thing. And which one thing do I ask them to do? Do I beg and plead with them and teach them about it, inspire them? I beg and I tell them to speak always only the truth. He says, and I know that what that's going to mean in the long run is that the guy is not going to steal. Because what's going to happen when he steals and he gets caught? They're going to ask him if he stole it. He's going to have to tell the truth. He's going to sit in prison again. So he says, I asked them to tell the truth. No matter what happens, no matter what they do, no matter how embarrassed they are, they should speak the truth. And that's what you saw. They asked the guy if he's going to steal. First he says no. Then he realizes he can't lie. He's thinking in the back of his head, I want to get the rabbi a watch. He said, do you trust me? I didn't ask him for a watch. But I asked him to speak the truth. When a person is a person of emet, even when the emet doesn't show them in the most flattering light, they still have the midah of emet. Because emet is pure. It's not sometimes. Emet is always. Emet is the first letter, the middle letter, and the last letter of the aleph bet. Aleph, taf, and mem, equidistant. Because in every scenario, a person has an obligation to not only speak the truth, but to be a person of truth. To be an ish emet, a person who has integrity, who does the right thing, who does the correct thing. It used to be in the old school guys, and the old school ladies, they had an overriding sense of what integrity meant. You tell them, what do you mean? Mutar. What would they say? Mutar, aib. It's not right. The concept that you hear people, it's not proper. There's some people still say these types of words in our world, even though they live in our world, they're from a generation ago. Someone like Haron. Haron is always arguing it's not proper. That's an old school word, but it's brought into a new school, in a new school body. It's not proper. Mo'aib, it's not correct. That idea, the overarching concept of emet, is something that he taught those prisoners. So that's how they reacted. My friends, I'll never forget in my father's synagogue, many, many, many years ago, that there was a very wealthy and powerful man that got up to speak in the synagogue. This made such an impression on me as a child. He gets up there, my father introduces him, he's going to say a few words to the kahal. He stands up and in the knesset he says, Rabotai, honesty is not the best policy. Everyone's looking at the rabbi. Who'd you put up? Who's this guy? Wait, Esav you gave us? Like, what's happening here? Honesty is not the best policy. And then he goes, honesty is the only policy. You don't have an option. It's not that you chose the best one. It's the only policy. You want to know how I became successful in business, he says? He says, by never messing over anybody. My word was 100% bankable. You could take it to the bank. You didn't need contracts. So you know what happens? I lost money on a few deals. There was a few times where, my honesty meant that I was not the lowest bid. But you know what happened? They took the other guy's bid because it was cheaper. But then they realized the other guy's a liar. So he gave them one more point in the deal. But the one more point that he gave them, they paid for dearly when they sat at the business table with that guy. So the next time they came back to me. And once they came back to me and I fulfilled my end of the bargain, they stayed with me forever. Honesty is not the best policy. It's the only policy. My friends, you have to understand, that's what God was communicating to Noach. God says to Noach, according to the Kli Yakar, Kach lecha, take for yourself food for the teva. Not food that belongs to somebody else. But you could imagine Noach saying, why does it have to come from my food? What difference does it make? This guy, he's dead tomorrow. And you know what's going to happen to all of his produce? It's going to get wasted. It's going to go in the garbage. It's going to be flooded by the Meham Mabul. No one will ever use it ever again. God says, no, it's not honest. It doesn't matter if tomorrow it won't matter. Right now, right here, it matters. Sometimes a person is in a conversation, in a business deal, in a situation. You know what? Anyway, and your brain is coming up all sorts of reasons and answers as to why it's okay for me to say this. It's okay for me. Anyway, this guy lied. Anyway. You have it sometimes, the Tzarenu Arav. You have it in Eretz Yisrael. People, unfortunately, they feel like they're allowed to lie on their tax returns because the government did this. Anyway, they spend the tax money on events that are not according to the Torah. That's their business. You lying is your business. Never the twain shall meet. So Noach, in a world of Hamas, in a world of lies, in a world of theft, Noach, you want to be saved. You can't be saved with the food of another person in your backpack. That just does not work. So God tells Noach, honesty, honesty, honesty. Honesty in your word, honesty in your business, honesty in the way you comport yourself. Okay, so someone is asking a question, what do we mean when we say that something is right or correct? Do we mean that the thing is right halachically and ethically and morally, or do we mean that it looks right? In halakha, there are two separate elements to doing the right thing. One element of doing the right thing is halakha, stealing. It's his money. It belongs to me, belongs to him. I'm not allowed to do that. I can't take advantage. Even if they'll never know the right thing, it's the right thing. However, there's also another halakha, and that halakha is the halakha of marit ayin, which means that something might seem to the casual observer or the uneducated observer as if what you did was stealing. A person is not allowed to be thought to be stealing, even if it's not stealing. Let's say, as an example, you reach into someone's jacket pocket and you take out $50 from his pocket. It's my money. I asked him to bring me $50 from the bank. He has it in his pocket. We're best friends. If I reach into his pocket publicly, take out $50, that's asur. Why? It looks like you stole. And as the pasuk says, "V'hitem nikiyim be'enei Elokim ve'adam," you should be clean in the eyes of God and in the eyes of people. But that's not the halacha of integrity and honesty. That's the halacha of marit ayin. But that's not the same thing. They are both something that a person needs to stay away from. They're attached to or connected as an addendum, but they are not the same thing. In either case, a person is not allowed to do that. You have to make sure that you're keeping the laws of honesty and of integrity publicly, but also with regards to what other people see. And unfortunately, sometimes that weighs in other ways. Now, that's not to say that when society has its ideas of what's right, that I'm obligated to bend to their understandings of what's right. So if everyone feels that I should be donating money to whatever institution happens to be in vogue today, and the fact that I don't want to give my money to something because I don't believe in it, that's not this. That's not that I need to. The Torah doesn't encourage a person to be a sheep and follow blind and needlessly after somebody else when it's incorrect. Marit ayin is when something is actually asur in the eyes of the beholder. Then I'm not allowed to do that because they, number one, will learn that from me. Number two, will assume perhaps that I'm a bad person because I've done that thing. Okay, there's this case that came to Rabbi Zilberstein. There was a man who walks into a store, and the fella, he's a grocer, and he's got on his shelf, he's got vegetables at the end of the day. He's going to take these vegetables. What's he going to do with them? He's going to throw them out. If you go to Machane Yehuda at night, you'll see tons of vegetables left out on the shelves. They don't need them anymore. So many of the sellers, they will leave it for people, homeless people, poor people, to come. They're not selling it anyway. Anyway, there's a grocer in a local area. He's got some produce on the shelf. The guy asks the fellow behind the counter, he says, "Are you throwing this out?" He says, "Yeah, I'm throwing it out. It's rotten." The guy says to him, "Look, but there's a couple pieces here. There's a couple pieces here that are not rotten." He says, "Can I take those?" And the grocer says, "No, thank you very much. I'm throwing them out." Why is the grocer doing this? Why is the grocer throwing out good produce? Because when you're a grocer in the local neighborhood, if people know that at the end of the day you throw stuff out, what happens? They don't buy. So if you live in Machane Yehuda and it's not a consistent consumer base, it's a shuk, it's one thing. But if your customers every day come back to the same place and they learn that they don't have to pay for stuff because you're going to throw it out, what happens? I see this all the time. Guys tell me, "Rabbi, I don't buy lulav and etrog. I wait until the last minute when these lulav and etrog guys have to throw it all out. And then they give it away almost for $2 for free." I think to myself, Shema Yisrael, what a way to treat a mitzvah. To treat a mitzvah like it's garbage. Okay? To only do the mitzvah when you get it for $2. Hazaku Baruch. You know what Hashem will do? He'll reward you the same way when it comes to you. You need money, Hashem will say, no, it's okay. I'll wait till the final minute when you're about to lose your home on the mortgage. I'll see what I could get for a couple dollars. See if I could score some deals with you. Unbelievable, okay? The grocer says, "Thank you very much, I'm throwing it out." Anyway, the guy comes to the rabbi and he asks the rabbi a halachic question. He says, "Hada's throwing stuff out anyway, it's going in the garbage. If he's not looking, I take these 2 apples. Nobody's going to be hurt. Am I allowed to take these 2 apples before he throws them in the garbage?" The rabbi said, it's his thing, it's his object. He's allowed to do whatever he wants to do with it, even if he's going to throw it away in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, from the garbage, you could take it out. But until he relinquishes his ownership on that thing, you cannot steal something because something is going to be wasted or going to be thrown out. And they asked the rabbi, same question. You have these cases where Tnuva and all these other big companies, they have excess produce. What do they do with this excess produce? They dump it in the ocean. Right? Why do they do that? Because they have to control the market prices. If one year there's a massive crop of tomatoes, the price of tomatoes in the marketplace will fall out. all the tomato people will go bust because you got to sell 10 times the amount of tomatoes to make $1. So what do? They take the tomatoes, they throw them out. Did you know this? This is a procedure that takes place in every single industry. You think it's only oil where they hold back produce that they have? Millions and billions of barrels that are just sitting there so that they OPEC and they could control the market price of oil. Think it's only in oil? It's in tomatoes, it's in cucumbers, it's in wheat, it's in rice. This is how it works. They set it on fire, they destroy it. Anyway, you're a driver for Tnuva. They tell you, take this stuff, dump it in the ocean. Guy thinks to himself, forget that. I'll take this, I'll become the tomato hero of Beit Vagan. I would give out tomatoes, everywhere I go. I'll be Santa Claus for a day. Everyone will love me. Fantastic. And it's a victimless crime. Mutar, asur. Rabbi Zilberstein said, asur. Why? Because until that moment that it is destroyed, it is in the reshut, it belongs to the owner. The owner is saying, my ownership precludes you from taking it. Therefore, no one is allowed, until it gets to that place, no one's allowed to take it. And he brought a proof, Rav Zilberstein, from this exact kliyakar. Kach lecha. It's about to be destroyed. It doesn't matter. My friends, not only that, but for Noach to be saved in a generation, in a time of dishonesty, it was even more important for him to be able to do that. The Chazal bring us an example of this concept. There was a fellow who was going to pass away, and he travels to a city, a famous city where nobody ever told no one ever told a lie. So the people there, they just lived on and on and on because they had this koach of a person that didn't tell a lie. Anyway, he goes to this place, and he's living there, and even though he's supposed to die, he carries on living. Until what happens? Until he tells an untruth. And because he tells the untruth, he dies. And I remember reading in one of the Mefarshim something unbelievable. Why did the guy deserve to die just because he told an untruth? There's no halakha that says that someone who says a lie, mot yumat. So why did the guy die? Because the answer is, it's not that he died because of that. Everybody dies. This place has a special segula. What's the special segula of this place? That people tell the truth. You don't tell the truth, what happens? You're excluded from the power of this thing. The Teva created a scenario where even though in the whole world it had become so corrupted by Hamas, by adultery, by self-centeredness, that everyone was decreed in this gizerah for death, for annihilation through the process of the Mabul. What Noach did was he created a space that was its own space. It was apart from the world. It was different to the world. It was separate from the world. And in that space, the values in the Teva said that this space is not the same as outside this space. And that's how the Teva was protected from the flood waters at the time of the Mabul. So what went on in the walls of that Teva was so important. They were so crucial to be the anathema, the antithesis of what was going outside, because otherwise there was no difference between the Teva and elsewhere, in which case it would not have been capable of saving them. My friends, every single person is in the process in this world of building Tebot. When you build a Jewish school, you're building a Teva. When you build a Jewish home, we'd like to wish Sammy Sutton, a Mabruk, and Michaela Trotsky on their wedding today. So many people on the other side of the world know Sammy Sutton, they don't know who he is. So for once, you're going to get a chance to see Sammy Sutton. That's Sammy Sutton over there with that little silly grin on his face. He's the happiest man on the face of the planet right now because he's getting married this afternoon, okay? Sammy, you're about to build a teva, a Jewish home. If you want the inside of your Jewish home to not be the same as the outside, how careful you have to be with what goes into the teva. But my friends, the school is a teva, the yeshiva is a teva, the Jewish schools, the cheder is a teva, the shul is a teva. There's things that don't come in here. You want to talk about the Yankees, no problem. But so much of the culture of our world is so tarif So much of the celebrities and what they stand for and who they are and how they dress and how they comport themselves is so not. Lo yizacher al picha. The names should not walk into the synagogue. The security guard should stop even conversation from entering, because this is a teva. You want this place to be holy in an ocean of unholiness? You need to fiercely protect its apartness, its otherness, its difference from the street. But there's one more teva, my friends. One more teva that we guard. Not just our homes, not just our schools. And the teva is this right here, your mind. When you're walking in the street and you want to have your own opinion, which is not influenced by what's going on all around you, that's your teva. And if you want to be able to think clearly, and this I think speaks to Dan's question, if you want to be able to think clearly, if you want your thought processes to be your own, not groupthink, not mob psychology, not peer pressured by the media stations, if you want to be able to have your own opinion based on the words of the Torah of our Chachamim, you cannot have in there